Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Zara and today I am going to be doing a review of a Stephen King book. I haven't read tons of Stephen King, so I randomly came across this book, The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, because I was looking for a short Stephen King book. A lot of his books are huge, they're pretty chunky books, and I just wanted to read something smaller, something a bit more palatable. And I'm not a straight up horror reader. Like I like psychological horror, and I like psychological thrillers. Like I like more of the psychological side of it than like jump scares and like vampires and stuff like that. Like I'm not really into that, to be honest, but I do really like the psychological horror aspects. And so I came across this book really randomly. It came up as one of his shortest books, and it's a psychological horror. I thought, okay, let's give this book a go. So we're essentially following a 9-year-old girl as she gets lost in a forest and her mind starts to unravel. And it is absolutely fascinating. I never ever thought I would find a story about a 9-year-old girl getting lost in a forest this fascinating. And yet I did. I loved it. I loved everything about it. The one thing I will warn though is if you are somebody who hikes a lot, and especially if you hike alone, don't read this book. I do a lot of hiking, but I often go with somebody else. But it did slightly terrify me that if I got lost in the woods, would I react in the same way? I'd like to think I wouldn't, and I'd like to think I know a bit more than poor Trisha. But yeah, it's slightly terrifying for sure. So just keep that in the back of your mind. I'm going to just jump straight into my review. What did I love? Stunning writing. Loved the writing. Super simple, but like very effective at telling this type of story. The thing that King does really well in this book is the atmosphere and the suspense, the tension, the constant sense of dread, the constant sense that something is lurking around the corner, that something is going to come up behind Trisha and eat her or hurt her, or that she's going to fall down a ditch that she didn't see, or that she's going to eat something that's going to kill her. There is threat everywhere, and it really ups the stakes. It really feels like at any moment this little girl could be gravely injured, or even worse, could die. I think the way that he just built the tension was fantastic, because when we start the book, you know, she's a 9-year-old girl, right? She doesn't really think about the idea of imminent death. It's when she starts to kind of panic that we start to get this sense of doom. We start to get this sense of, shit, this girl might potentially die. And I just think the way that he paced it was perfect and really effectively told the story that I haven't really seen done before. And I just loved it. Like I absolutely loved it. The other thing that I really loved about this book is the character of Trisha. Now we are with this girl the entire book, and there's so much depth to Trisha, and I think a lot of people can relate to Trisha in a way that I was not expecting. There's a lot of family trauma surrounding Trisha. Her parents have got divorced, her brother is an asshole, but she almost feels like the spare part. She feels like she doesn't get a lot of attention or a lot of love. And I mean, the reason why she gets lost is because her brother and her mother don't even notice that she goes off to basically pee in the woods. They don't even realize that she goes off. And it's really just like fantastic insight into what can happen when a child comes from a family that isn't like a unified unit. And we get flashbacks as well, right? We get flashbacks to moments where like her family have had arguments, her brother and her mother have fought, and she's always there just in the back. She's very rarely fighting herself. She's just there listening to other people fight all the time. There's one specific quote that I wish I tabbed, but I didn't have my tabs with me, where she talks about how her mother and her brother are fighting, and she's trying to talk, and it's like she's not even there. It's like she just doesn't even exist. And I felt that. I feel like a lot of people will feel that sense of isolation, even when you're surrounded by other people, like they're just talking over you, and you might as well just not even be there at that point. I think seeing it through the eyes of a young girl as well, like I don't think you generally really realize it when you're younger, because you're just trying to like get through each day. It's only when you look back on those moments that you realize that you are not being listened to, and that's a very traumatic thing for a child, I think, even though they might not necessarily realize it in that moment. And I just really like the way that Trisha was very self-aware. I think she's a very self-aware 9-year-old, And I have to say, I think she handled this whole situation way better than I ever could have. She's very smart, very tenacious. She picks up things and she remembers things that people have told her about what to do when you're in the woods. And these moments of realization come to her throughout the journey. But you really feel for her. Like, I really wanted her to get out of this alive and unhurt. And you develop a real sense of kinship with her because she's just so relatable and adorable at the same time. The other interesting thing about Trisha, so the title of the book is The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon. Now, Tom Gordon is a baseball player. He plays, I think he still plays for the Red Sox. He's a pitcher for the Red Sox. I don't watch tons of baseball. I've seen a baseball game when I was in Canada. I've seen one when I was in the US as well, and I thought it was fun, but I don't follow it as a sport, so I don't really know much about Tom Gordon. But she loves him. She's obsessed with him. Like, he's her role model. She really, like, adores him. She thinks he's talented. She fancies him a little bit. But there's a lot of love for him as a character, and she uses Tom Gordon as a way to survive, to the point where she actually starts hallucinating him and starts to talk to him as though he is with her. And it's her survival instincts essentially tapping in so she doesn't go absolutely crazy. And even though she's hallucinating Tom and like dreaming about him all the time when she's in the woods, and that is potentially a sign of a bit of craziness, there's a reason for it, and it's her survival instincts kicking in and trying to stop her from going truly mad. It's her way of developing a sense of security in a way. And I really like the moments that we got and the kind of conversations between her and Tom, because I think they were very revealing about her mental state as well. The other thing that I really liked about this book is the world building. And the reason why I mention the world building now is because the forest or the woods in itself is a character. It feels alive, you know, the water trickling, the insects, the mosquitoes are a recurring feature. They're always near her head and buzzing around and sucking her blood. Like, you can feel the anxiety that she feels when the mosquitoes are constantly on her. The water, the streams, the trees rustling, like, you really feel like this forest is alive and it's trying to get her, but yet her imagination prevents her from being completely taken in some regards. And I just really felt for this girl. Like, I really, really felt for her, and I wanted her to be safe. And yet, things happen. I'm not going to say more than that. I think the thing I really liked about this book as well is I think it's really a insight into how, like, the tiniest small decision that we make in a split second can have, like, huge detrimental consequences. I mean, the whole book starts off with her just going slightly off track so that she can go pee, and then she'll quickly, her whole idea is that she'll quickly go rejoin her brother and her mother before they even realise that she's disappeared. But because she makes that decision to go completely off track, she makes that decision to go a little bit further so that nobody can see her. That one small split second decision completely changes her entire life. And then we get other decisions that she makes later on. I mean, the thing I really like what King does is he tells us about, like, if she had made this decision, she would have found people sooner. And it really ups that sense of dread, because you're like, oh, if she had just gone left rather than right, she would have been safe. She would have been found. She would have been fine. But no, she decided to go right in that split second for no other reason than it felt right, or she saw this thing and she decided to go right. She delays the inevitable, and it's just very edge of your seat, kind of on the tip of your toes all of the time. And I just really felt for Trisha. I really, really felt for her, because you have to remember as well, she's 9 years old. I actually forgot that about halfway through. I forgot that she was 9 years old, and then I remembered, I was like, shit, she's only 9. And yet, like, she's navigating this really scary environment as a champion, like, as a total champ. And I was really rooting for her, like, really, really rooting for her. I think the last thing that I will mention, because I wanted to keep this review very short, because it's a short book, is that I love the fact that we kind of get Trisha as she's going through the forest, but then also these vignettes, but then also these little moments of, I don't know, zooming out of what is happening when her mother and her brother finally find out and they report it to the police. Like, we get the kind of what's happening in the background, and then it kind of zooms back into Trisha. Like, I love the way the story, it felt very cinematic. And I don't know if there is a movie of this. I'd be very surprised if there isn't, but if there isn't, I really hope someone makes it, because I think this would make a really good movie or a really good limited TV series, because it's just designed for that, like absolutely designed for it. I gave this book a 5 stars. I loved it. I've only ever read one other Stephen King book, which was 11/22/63, and I liked it. I just think it was unnecessarily long. Like, it was very chunky and it dragged in places. But this for me was perfect. Like, it was short, palatable, very atmospheric, very tense. Loved the character of Trisha. I think she was just somebody that I was rooting for, and it was just really creepy. Like, I felt the creepiness of the forest and what was happening to this little girl. I don't know tons of people who have read this, so let me know if you've read this. I'm also going to ask any Stephen King fans to recommend me any other books that are a little bit shorter. I have a bunch of his books now, but they're all like mammoth books. I've got the Dark Tower series, I've got all the books. I have It, I have Carrie, I have Shawshank Redemption, I have a bunch of others, you know, like some of his really popular ones. But if there's any more like underrated reads or books that are slightly short, on the shorter side of things, do let me know, because I will definitely check them out, because this has made me want to prioritize more Stephen King. Also, bonus points if it's psychological more than just like straight up horror, because I prefer the psychological aspects. I hope you enjoyed this review, and if you have read it, let me know down below, because I'd love to discuss it. As always, thank you for watching. Stay safe, take care, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.